You're listening to the Sportsman's Nation Podcast Network, brought to you by Interstate Batteries. Interstate Batteries has been a proud supporter of the Sportsman's Nation since day one. So if you're looking for any type of batteries, whether it's for your truck, your car, your trail cameras, your rangefinder, stop into a local Interstate Batteries retail location. There are thousands upon thousands of them all over the United States. Talk with a battery specialist and get the batteries that you need to go on with your life. Interstate Batteries, outrageously dependable.
My name is Clay Newcomb, and I'm the host of the Bear Hunting Magazine podcast. I'll also be your host into the world of hunting the icon of North American wilderness, the bear. We'll talk about tactics, gear, conservation, but we'll also bring you into some of the wildest country on the planet, chasing bear. Rusty Johnson. Rusty Johnson is a longtime friend of mine, and I've always had a ton of respect for him as a whitetail hunter. There's not another person that puts in more energy and has more passion and love for bow hunting whitetail deer than Rusty Johnson. So we have a really good discussion, a timely discussion, because it is go time for whitetails, and we have a timely discussion about all things deer hunting, his philosophies, my questions and philosophies, and just a fast-paced conversation that you're going to enjoy. Hey, I've been carrying for the last week in the Arkansas muzzleloader season my CVA Acura. Man, I had a tough hunt. I did not shoot the gun at a deer, which I regret to say. But I got very familiar with this CVA Acura mountain rifle. It's got a shorter barrel. It's got a Cerakote finish. It's got the breakover design so that you can easily break the gun over, remove the breech plug, which I did one time because I forgot if the gun was loaded. And so I undid the breech plug and looked in the back of it, saw my Pyrodex pellets, and was like, it's loaded. And I did that in the field because I wanted to double check that the gun was loaded. These features are important. CVA makes an incredible line of muzzleloaders, and they have an incredible guarantee. Check out CVA. If you have a muzzleloader, that's what you need to be shooting. W Hunting Supply. These guys have just now started carrying the new Alpha 200i. This is Garmin's first dog tracking, training, and now in-reach device. It's the first new device, dog tracking device that they've come up with in 8 years. It has an in-reach inside of it, so you can satellite text message from anywhere. And it's a great product with a bunch of new features. This issue of Bear Hunting Magazine, the November-December, has a point-by-point little write-up written by W about all the new features. You can check it out. But W Hunting Supply, anything you need for dogs, you need to be supporting our friends, Buddy Woodbury and his team at W Hunting Supply. Northwoods Bear Products, man. You've heard me say it so many times. If you're baiting bears, it makes no sense not to be using this stuff. Bear baiting is for the most part over, even though I have successfully baited bear in early November here in Arkansas. And if I was going to do that, I would absolutely be using some Northwoods Gold Rush Fire Grease Additive, and any part of their product line you could use right now to make a loud scent on a bear bait to attract bears. Check them out, northwoodsbearproducts.net. Hey, let's get to the conversation with old Rusty Johnson, the Whitetail Ninja. Rusty, they have an Instagram group called Whitetail Warfare, so you can check them out on Instagram. Man, Rusty, this has probably been a long time coming, having you on the podcast, because you have been an influential figure in my whitetail world for sure. Kolby, we were just looking at that buck right there. That's the way I met Rusty Johnson.
Yeah.
2007, How long have you scored for Pope and Young? So Rusty's a scorer.
Yeah, I started for Pope and Young in 2004.
Okay.
I also score for Buckmasters, and I started with them in 1995. It was the very first year that they started the record keeping.
Yeah.
And I started with them. I was in the very first class with them.
Buckmasters in 1995.
Yep.
I'll be done.
I was in the very first class. My score number is number 9.
Really?
Yeah. And I've done a lot for them and enjoyed every bit of it.
Yeah.
Right on.
Well, so this is the way. Let me tell you how Rusty. So he scored that deer for me back in 07, and that was the first big deer I ever killed. Rusty. I mean, I guess I'd killed a 125-inch deer before, which for us is a big deer. For Arkansas,
Oh, yeah.
with a bow, 125-inch deer, Northwest Arkansas, I'd spend my whole season every year trying to kill a deer like that just to set the record straight. But that deer was a 160-inch plus deer.
Yeah.
I remember I brought it to you and your dad up at what was the name of that sporting goods store?
Sportsman's Warehouse.
Oh.
Yeah.
We used to call it the Temple.
Yeah.
We called it the Temple. Let's go to the Temple. That was back before the internet when we ordered everything online, but going to a sporting goods store was like a big deal.
Yeah.
And you had me meet you up there. But anyway, we've been good buddies ever since then. We've never really hunted together, but every year we stay in touch about what's going on. And
we score some contests together.
Yeah.
Your official score now and everything. And we started doing that, and I enjoy that every year when we meet up.
Yeah, that's kind of our
that.
annual rendezvous.
Yeah.
When I meet up with you and your son Rustin, who's a friend of mine too. He's a good deer hunter. But no, hey, Kolby, this guy is a very good deer hunter, like top level deer hunter. Really, he puts in as much effort as anybody inside the hunting season.
I do put a lot of time in.
Yeah,
sure do.
And that's what I want to talk to you about. So, like, the cool thing about this conversation is it's going to air tomorrow. What's today? The 28th of October.
Sounds right.
So it's going to come out on maybe the 29th of October, which is like, I mean, this is the time that we wait for all year long.
Yeah. You're lucky that I'm here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. This was, just to give a little context, this was totally spur of the moment.
Yeah.
I knew something that Rusty was doing. I knew it was raining.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, would you come over here and let's talk about whitetails?
Yeah, I've been hunting daylight to dark pretty much every day, rain or not. And I was going to take just a little bit of a break, and it was perfect timing.
Yeah. Well,
right on.
Man, okay, let me ask you a question. Do you, I was thinking yesterday, because I've got a deer story I want to tell you, okay? That happened on October 27th, yesterday. Do you remember dates really well when it comes to deer hunting?
Not really. Not specific dates.
Okay, like with deer, like could you like go through a catalog and say, I killed that deer on that day, that deer on this day, saw that deer on that day?
Yeah, I could probably like take you to my trophy room and point at each deer and say, hey, I killed that one November the 7th at whatever. You know, I could probably do that, but as far as like seeing deer, I've either got to write it down or log it in my phone or something, because I don't have that good of memory.
Well, I was going to say there's about a 14-day window during the year that I remember dates really well. And that's from October 25th to about November the 10th, 15 days there. And I can recall like when close hunting buddies saw a buck, like my father-in-law, I follow him real close in whitetail hunting. Well, I remember a deer that he killed on October 23rd. I remember like sightings and like, anyway, it's really funny to me.
Memory.
Well, I don't think I do. I think it's really interesting to me how like you can key in under this one little section of the calendar and be so focused on it. Here's something I did yesterday, Rusty, was like we're looking at some of the deer that I've killed just here in the office. Like those deer are easy to remember. What I want to remember and learn from is the big buck encounters that I had that I didn't kill the buck, like yesterday. And last night, because I came home from this encounter yesterday, and I just thought, man, that was awesome. It was heartbreaking, and I know you've had some heartbreaks over the years. Yeah. It was heartbreaking that I didn't kill this deer, and I'll tell the story. But, geez, this buck read the script, everything was perfect. It was a beautiful day. I mean, like it just kind of like water slipped through my hands, and I wrote down 7. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 dates of deer that have happened just like that over the years. Some of them not to the day, some of them just to the year and the general time frame. But I started thinking about the big buck encounters that got away from me. You follow me?
Oh, yeah.
Because you can learn just as much from those as you can the ones that are on your wall. Because, like, I didn't kill that deer yesterday.
Absolutely, yeah.
But he was there ready to be killed.
Mm-hmm.
But now, when's your favorite time to – what's your favorite 3 days to hunt?
Favorite 3 days?
Yeah.
I'd say October 31st, November 1st, November 2nd.
Really?
That's my favorite.
Really? Mm-hmm. And that would be specifically for Northwest Arkansas or other places?
I would say Arkansas and Kansas. Of course, I hunt Kansas a lot. I didn't draw this year, but I hunt Kansas almost every year. And those 3 days right there are my favorite.
The money days, huh?
I mean, that's just my favorite days. Yeah. I mean, I've had the most encounters. I probably killed the most deer during those 3 days.
Yeah.
I probably couldn't nail down and tell you exactly why, but probably because it's right before they start really running around, running 5 miles this direction, 5 miles that direction. Because, the days following that, they really get wild. I mean, they go to running around and stuff, and they're not really there.
Yeah.
And to me, those 3 days are my favorite.
So you think you can kill deer that you kind of know about almost, or just they're a little bit more predictable? Like, is that what you're saying?
I think so. Yeah.
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 But that's my favorite 3 for sure.
I would have to totally agree with those dates. I mean, like, especially for here. Have you heard people talk about the peak conception dates for Northwest Arkansas?
I've heard a little bit about it.
Do you remember any of those?
No.
Okay. I just, before I said this, I wanted to see if you had updated intel, because there was a study that was done, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago, maybe longer, where they did a fetus study, like roadkill deer, like pulling fetuses out, and they could track back conception. And the peak conception dates in Northwest Arkansas were like, I want to say November the 5th through like November the 8th, which is sort of early.
Yeah.
But it lines up real well with what you just said.
Yeah.
And what I would see as well in terms of, from about right now through about November the 6th or 7th, it's really good.
Yeah. Now, if you opened it up, not just pin it down to 3 days, it would be just what you said a while ago, like October the 25th through, November the 6th, 7th, somewhere along in there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a pretty good gap right there that I would like to be in a tree, all day.
Yeah.
And, I like to hunt trees all day long. I just don't like to get down.
Man, that's what I would know you of as probably more than anything. Like, there's characteristics of guys hunting. You love sitting all day.
I do.
Tell me your strategy.
I don't know. I mean, my strategy goes really deep. I like to shed hunt.
Yeah.
And that right there is the key to my strategy. When I'm shed hunting, I'm picking up antlers, but I'm also looking at potential hunting spots.
Yeah.
Even nailing down a tree, because, I mean, there's no more proof than getting a shed in your hand that there's a big buck in that area.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he could be in a mile radius. He could be in a 5 mile radius. But when you pick that shed up, he was there.
He stood right there.
So I start looking from that point. He was standing right there. So I start looking from that point, and I start looking at, the lay of the land and, looking for their travel routes and stuff. You can tell a whole lot, like in February, March, you can tell a lot about what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that is where my strategy starts right there.
Yeah. So what do you tell me about what you're looking for inside of your hunting? If you could distill it down and even describe the terrain a little bit, Rusty, just because, I mean, people who listen to this, if they're, I don't know, there's no, people could be from anywhere listening to this, but like, what's Northwest Arkansas like? What are you looking at?
So, I mean, these Ozark Hill country bucks are really tough to hunt. I mean, if you're out there hunting, you're not going to see 20 to 30 deer a set. You may not even see a deer on an all-day hunt.
Yeah.
They are really tough. But, everybody talks about the traditional, pinch points, saddles, all that kind of stuff. And, they're good, but that's not what I'm looking for. I mean, these bucks like to travel on the side of ridges. There may be a lot of ridges that come together, and they travel through that where they may not be on the top. There may be scrapes on the top. A lot of people like hunting scrapes, and I do hunt scrapes too, but I look off the beaten path. I mean, if you see like a really beat out trail coming around the edge of a ridge, you need to look either above it or below it. There'll be a real dim trail, and that's where your buck is. And that may be 50 yards from the main trail. So you got to look at things like that. I mean, it's not as simple as just going out there and finding a pinch point, finding a saddle, although they're good. But I look for different things like trails on the side of the hill. And a lot of times that's tough to bow hunt. You have to, put a game plan together to see how you're going to, intercept that deer, because it's tough to hunt on the side of a hill or like in the bottom in a ditch or something.
Yeah.
But I try to hunt different things like that, and it's worked for me.
What about during like the chase phase, the rut, when these deer are moving around so much? Would you not hunt these real generic travel areas then?
Yeah. I mean, when they're chasing does and stuff, the does are going to be where food is. And when they're really chasing, I mean, I focus on food. I mean, that's just what I do.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're going to run through pinch points and stuff like that, and saddles. I mean,
because
I'm
trying to distill down what you're saying, because like right now, I feel like I need to be hunting just the does, like hunting where the does are, and the does are going into these kind of normal travel areas. So like right now, are you hunting hunting kind of more obscure travel areas?
Well, right now I'm hunting really close to a bedding area. And I know the does are bedding there, and the place where they're feeding the most is probably about 200 yards from there. But I'm hunting really, really close to the bedding area, almost inside a little bit of the bedding area.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're not going to stand up all day long. I mean, they got to bed at some point.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they'll just bed down where they're eating. But I really push the limits. I mean, I don't really hunt traditionally. I mean, it's hard to explain, really. I mean,
he's holding out on us. Just kidding.
But no, I'm not holding out. I'm just saying that I push the extremes. I sometimes I hunt right in the middle of the bedding area, and a lot of people say you're stupid for for just going in there and blowing deer out. But and I may be stupid. I don't know, but.
Well, describe what you like this bedding area that you're in. What does it look like? It's just
a really high stem count. I mean, you got really open woods, and it's terrain driven too. I use OnX a lot. It's got topo on it, and they'll bed down on the side of ridges. It may not even be a high stem count, but they really like high stem count because it makes them feel safer, I think.
Yeah, just thicker stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, and another thing is catching these big bucks in the daylight. When they're chasing, I mean, they're going to be chasing all day long. But like right before that, those dates that I give you, they're not, catching them in daylight's tough. I mean, really tough. And you got to get close to where they're bedding down to be able to catch them in that window right before they go back to bed.
In this big timber of the country like we're hunting, though, I mean, it's hard for me to just pin down right where they're bedding, though, Rusty. You know what I'm saying? Like, just because it's like there's like you take this terrain like right here by my house, like there's real thick stuff just like right there. And then there's some open woods, but there's also real thick stuff like 500 yards from here. So it's like it's hard for me to know like exactly where they're bedding.
Like in open woods where you've got thousands of acres and there's no like per se bedding area. I used to own some property, and it was just in Missouri, and it was just big timber. And when we bought it, the very first thing we did was cut. We done some selective cut, but we also drew on the map areas where we wanted to create our bedding area, and we just basically clear cutted it and made a bedding area. But in this hill country, in these Ozarks, you can't do that. So, I mean, you just have to look for like specific terrain types. I mean, like when I'm shed hunting, I find all kinds of bedding. You would not believe the places where I find where they're bedding. I mean, some really steep ground. There may be a log. They like laying by logs, you know, blowovers, you know, stuff like that. I mean, I find all kinds of stuff like that, and it gives me good ideas where to get when deer season gets here.
Yeah. Any consistency and, I mean, I guess shed hunting though, you're finding these are these deer's late winter beds, so maybe they could change a little bit. Do you find consistency?
I do, because I mean, you know, basically the food that they're eating now, they're eating late winter too.
Okay.
I mean, that's just what I found.
It's pretty similar.
It's pretty.
Well, then is there a consistent slope that they like? Would you say out of 10 times, would a buck bed on the south side 5 of those times? I mean, is there any consistency that you've seen?
Well, I've heard people say south slope, north slope, all that, but in my experience, I find sheds on all of it. Random.
So it's more kind of micro terrain feature, vegetation feature driven.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like, it may be on the north side, but it's because there's cover and the wind is right.
Yeah, it may have been what the wind was that day, or, you know, what the weather conditions were that day. I mean, they may bed on the north slope or the south slope.
Yeah.
Could be weather driven too. I don't know how to explain it, but I'd just say, you know, there's 50-50, and I found a lot of sheds.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of my passions is
shed hunting.
That's probably second behind bow hunting is shed hunting.
Yeah. Think about this. Like, I often think about these places that I hunt, and if you had to, if I told you, Rusty, go out there and sit down in a place where I will never find you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because like where I hunt, and I'm learning the older I get and the more mature of a hunter I become, that I'm usually my own worst enemy.
Mm-hmm.
Like in terms of actually executing strategy. Like on this farm I hunt over here, I hunt one bigger farm that's about 600 acres. Man, I would do the same thing every year.
Yeah.
Now, it's produced some success. But, I mean, would I want more success? Yes. But, like, I pretty much, like, if you were to map over I've hunted this property for almost 20 years. If you were to map my movements on that property, there would be big holes where I don't go. Not like trying to preserve the place.
Right.
But, like, I do the same thing every year. Like, I hunt this stand, I hunt this stand, I scout here, I scout here, I scout here. And, like, if you kind of stepped back and looked, you would see these big holes. And I think probably deer know that. Yeah. I mean, like, they respond to human pressure and go to places where humans aren't. And it seems like kind of rational. Well, if you're a good deer hunter, you go into the places where the other hunters won't go. I mean, we hear that on Facebook all the time.
You hear it all the time.
It's way harder than that because it's not just walking further.
Right.
It's more nuanced than that. Like I'm quite certain that deer use that terrain over there on that 600-acre property. Like, I understand about 20% of their movement there, and that's probably made me an above-average deer hunter. My point is, the deer are using that property in ways, and I don't feel like I'm capitalizing on it as good as I could. Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, have you went in there in the off season and walked around and just looked?
I've spent a lot of time on that place in the winter.
You
I really have. I mean, just because
like every inch of it.
Maybe, probably not.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing that I strive to do. Like the areas that I'm hunting, whether it's private, public, whatever, in the off season, I go and I learn every square inch of that property. And then after going in there, it's a different than looking at a map than putting boots on the ground.
Yeah.
In the all season, I put boots on the ground and I look at every square inch. Then I go back and I look at my map and I'm thinking, I'm putting everything together. It's like pieces of a puzzle.
Yeah.
And you look at it and you think, you know, that deer is traveling this direction. I've been hunting over here. I move around a lot. Just like yesterday, I was in the stand all day long. I saw one really nice 8-point, but it's a spot I've never hunted.
Really? You'd never hunted there?
I had never hunted this particular spot. And Rustin had some game cameras in there, my son. And he said, can you go pull the cards out of that? And I said, well, I guess after I get down from this, I was hunting a different area, and it was already dark. I go in there. I check a lot of cameras at night.
Okay.
I mean, because I hunt daylight till dark. If I'm checking cameras during hunting season, it's at night.
Yeah.
And a lot of times in the summer, I'll go at night.
Okay.
I won't get into all that right yet. But so this spot yesterday is a spot I had never hunted before. I like to move around a lot.
Okay.
We got a lot of different places, and we've got them all mapped out. We've got them all pinned on OnX, and I've got trees picked out already. I hunt a lot out of a climber, especially on public. There's a lot of mature timber, and you have good trees to climb with a climber, and it's really mobile. You don't have to put up a lock on or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
And I do carry lock ons in too, and put them up and then take them down when I use them. But this spot yesterday is a spot I've never even hunted before.
Wow. You saw a lot.
Rustin had some cameras in there. He had some good bucks on camera. And so I said, I'm going to go in there and hunt. He's like, well, we've never even been in there hunting before. And I'm like, well, there's deer in there. We've got video on cameras.
Two questions I've got. I want to talk about moving stands. I want to ask you a personal question. But before that, how are you getting pictures of bucks? Because I know you're not using feed or any kind of scent attractant or anything in these places you're hunting.
No.
How are you getting pictures of bucks?
A lot on scrapes. You know, deer run scrapes a lot at night.
Yep.
A lot of activity at night. And if you'll notice on our page, a lot of our videos are at night of bucks running scrapes.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily where we're going to hunt. Where we're getting
it's just a good place to get inventory.
It's a good place to get inventory.
Yeah.
Is primary scrapes. And that's where we get a lot, especially, actually we get a lot of our content as far as buck inventory on scrapes year round. We have cameras on scrapes year round. It's not just a fall.
Work them.
They work them year round. I don't care if it's July. We've got bucks running, working scrapes with velvet. I mean, they work them year round.
Man, I left a camera out last year. And it just so happened, I changed the batteries like late winter, and I just was like, I just leave it up. And it was over scraped. Incredible pictures.
Yeah.
Of all stages of antler growth, those deer, working it, like putting their scent on that licking branch.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know. I saw them pawing the ground. Do you see them?
No.
They're mainly working the licking branch.
Especially in the summertime, they won't paw the ground.
Okay.
Very seldom. But I paw the ground for them. I get that the soil aroma coming up and stuff. Yeah. And I go ahead and rake it out and stuff, but you won't ever see them. But even in velvet, they'll put their antlers up in those licking branches and stuff and work them good. I mean, we've got hundreds and hundreds of videos.
I said just a couple of days ago, I made a post, and I was sitting over a scrape. It was October the 26th or 5th, and I made mention. It was like an Instagram story, and I made mention I was sitting over a scrape. And after I said it, I wanted to come back and qualify my scrape idea. And it's this. I'm not sitting over that scrape hoping to kill a buck working that scrape. Now, he might do that.
Yeah.
I was sitting in that spot because that was an area that's a travel area.
Right.
And bucks make primary scrapes in travel areas.
Right.
I mean, it's a scrape that's designed to communicate to the whole deer herd.
Yeah.
And so they're going to put that scrape not in some obscure place.
Right.
They're going to put it in a place that there's a lot of travel, a lot of movement.
Yeah.
And so you're hunting there not for the scrape, but for the reason that the scrape is there.
Right, exactly.
It's a travel area.
Exactly.
And because there used to be this idea that, the buck's checking his scrapes as if he's going to go out of his normal routine to go check a scrape.
Yeah.
Like as if that buck put a scrape in like a weird spot that he usually wouldn't go to. No.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's
and
pretty
also,
common sense.
Also, I believe that a lot of bucks check scrapes and not even go up to the scrape.
Yeah.
You know, they'll go downwind of that scrape. It may be 50, 100 yards, and they'll check that scrape.
Yes.
But they won't be on that scrape.
Mm-hmm.
So that comes into some, hunting strategy right there.
Right.
And that goes back to the, like, on the sides of hills and stuff. I mean, that I think a lot of people are missing. I'll put a camera on a scrape, and I'll also go down. A lot of times the scrape's on top of a ridge or whatever.
Yeah.
I'll go down below that scrape and find some of those real
put
dim
another
trails
trail out. Okay.
and put another trail camera out.
Okay.
But since trail cameras have come up, that's a lot of our strategy right there. We run trail cameras 365 days a year, and we run a lot of them.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we spend a lot of time, and that tells a big story right there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's a place that I hunt that is so it's super tough to hunt, but I've got a bunch of trail cameras out over there, and I've almost decided that I'm just happy getting good camera pictures of deer over there, and I'm not even worried if I ever kill a deer there, just because it's so much fun getting pictures of these deer.
Yeah.
But and in that place, I leave cameras out pretty much year round as well, and have been learning a lot. Okay, here's where I was wanting to go back to you with is, okay, here's a question that a guy would have. He hunts in a place, let's just say morning and evening. Maybe he doesn't sit the whole day. He gets down, and he sees moderate deer activity or maybe not much deer activity, but he's got a lot of confidence in the spot because of sign, because of the data he's gathered about this spot. It's prime time. It's like right now. Do you move to another spot? But and let me build the case even bigger. Is that James Lawrence, my old hunting buddy down the Ouachitas, that's kind of a master mountain deer hunter. He's had this philosophy for years, and he said he likes to hunt a spot 3 days from daylight till dark. And he says if you do that, you'll kill a deer. And he realizes now that there may be that's not always the best way. But my other buddy, who is a very good deer hunter down in the mountains down there too, that I have a ton of faith in, he wants to move. He's like, Clay, if you go into a spot and sit for a morning hunt and don't see a deer, get the heck out of there and go somewhere else. Like,
even if there's hot sign and
I mean, he really likes to move.
Yeah.
And so, he capitalizes on this like first time in. And I'm not saying he wouldn't hunt a spot over and over. I mean, he might. But like if he gets skunked, he's moving. Yeah. And so he's capitalizing on this like first time. So he hits it because we all know the first time in is often really good.
Yeah.
Where James would be like, find that sign and just stick it out. He said, you may not see a deer for 2 days.
Yep.
But on that third day, you're going to kill that buck. What do you think?
All right. So there's people.
Is that a good question, Kolby?
That is a good
great question.
Yeah. There's people.
What's your answer?
I don't have one.
Okay.
There's people on both sides of the fence on this deal. So one of the best deer hunters that I know is my dad. And he would go along with the 3-day philosophy. And that's kind of what I would that's where I would lean toward. I like moving. Yeah. But I will, if the sign's good and I know for a fact there's good bucks in that area, I'll stick it out.
Yeah.
I will. I mean, that's just what I do.
Well, see, that's my philosophy too, Rusty, is to try to just stick it out and not be validated by deer sightings.
Yeah.
I mean, like, because, man, when you got to be able to sit through some tough sits to kill one.
Yeah.
But listen to this. I've been doing that for a couple of weeks. I've hunted hard over here, and there's been a couple of reasons. I hunted hard early, which I usually don't quite as much, but I was getting pictures of a big deer.
Yeah.
And I felt like I could get him kind of in the pre-rut on a feeding pattern.
Right.
And I hunted him a lot. Well, I don't know where he's at now. He's not anywhere around here, that deer I was after. And so just yesterday, maybe this is a good time to tell my story. I just was like, I'm getting out of here. I'm going to a totally new place. And so I did that. Drove over to another property I have access to hunt, went in there, hung my tree saddle in a brand new spot. Now, it's a spot I had a lot of history with.
Yeah.
Don't have a single camera up over there. I mean, I don't mess with this farm much just because of I just go over there and hunt. And I scout, but I have 20 years of history, so I kind of knew where I wanted to go.
Right.
Climbed the tree at 3 o'clock yesterday. The temperatures here yesterday were just incredible. It was high temperature was like 45 degrees. It rained most of the day. You were out in the rain.
Oh yeah.
I didn't get in the stand till 3 o'clock yesterday, and where I was sitting is there's 3 features that funnel these deer into this pinch. There's the back corner of a pretty big field. Okay. And we all know that deer, rather than, if they're going from point A to point B and there's a field in between them and they don't want to walk across the open field, they'll hit the back corners of these fields,
right.
So a back corner, usually there's a lot of deer sign. So there's a corner, but there's also a big, deep hollow that comes up from the other side of this field edge. So there's a big, deep draw that heads up right there.
Yeah.
Deep enough that it funnels deer. And then there's a mountain that is on a third feature that funnels these deer into about probably an area that's 100 yards wide by 80 yards wide. So it's not like a tiny little 30-yard wide pinch. It's fairly good sized pinch.
Yeah.
But I got kind of in the center of it, and I climbed up in my tree saddle. I'm using a tethered Phantom saddle. Have you looked at those at all?
I've not. I've actually been thinking about getting a saddle. I started looking into it, but
they're pretty cool.
Yeah.
I've used them a lot this year and last year too. I like them because of their mobility.
Yeah.
So I just got up 17, 18 feet. 3 o'clock, was in the tree hunting. At 3:30, I see a doe coming down the hill. Coming like right to me. Or, within shooting range. And the way she was moving, it didn't strike me as odd, but what struck me as odd was how of a direct line she was taking. And at the time of day she was. Like the first time you see a deer, you gather so much data. I thought it was unusual that she was on her feet at 3:30 in the afternoon, and that she was moving with that much intentionality at 3:30 in the afternoon.
Right.
Because she was headed towards kind of these fields. Well, I see movement behind her about 40 yards, and I see a deer, Rusty, that was big enough that immediately, without even seeing his horns, I knew that it was a shooter buck. And for me, a shooter buck is a pretty good one. I'm not measuring inches. I'm probably a lot like you, Rusty. We're not necessarily saying we're after a 140-inch buck.
No.
We're after a mature Ozark buck, 4-year-old type deer.
Yeah.
I mean, is that what you're after?
Yeah. That's what I'm after.
And I saw this deer, and without even seeing his horns, I said, "That's him."
Yep.
I grabbed the bow,
got ready,
and then he comes into full view. At probably 60 yards, and I can just see a full rack. Just a good rack, and I ended up watching him for a long time. It's a nice, probably 135-inch 8-point, which is, for around here, I'd spend my whole season to kill that deer.
Yeah.
Big body, big neck, and the wind was blowing out of the north. And so if I'm sitting in a tree just like this right here, the wind has hit me in the side of the face. So the wind's blowing off to my right, okay? And so I'm looking at all this in front of me. It's not an ideal wind, but it's a pretty good wind. Well, just the way that deer was coming, she came in the worst possible way for my wind. And if the buck had been right behind the doe, like if he'd have been right on her, I think I would have had a shot at the deer. But the doe was about 40 yards in front of the buck. And so the doe cuts my wind. And she slams on the brakes.
Yeah.
And she doesn't freak out. She just stops. And what does the buck do? Obviously, he stops. And so he's 40 yards behind her.
Yeah.
The doe is at 30-ish yards right here. And, I'm locked and loaded waiting for this buck. I'm ranging, because this doe's coming. I'm ranging the doe because I know that buck's going to be right there. I mean, just the epitome of a whitetail situation. And but she slams on the brakes, and then I look back to him, and he is actually 45 yards from me. But, I mean, he's on red alert. And long story short, she milled around and never spooked, but she just turned and just kind of catwalked back out of there. And the buck jumped the fence and milled around, and I probably watched them for a total of 5 minutes. And finally, they just went back the way they came. But she absolutely smelled me. And never had a shot at the buck. I mean, not even a chance of a shot. I mean, it was just too thick. But I said all that to say that was my new spot. You know, I jumped to somewhere new and was just amazed at the deer activity. Now, I ended up seeing 7 deer throughout the evening, which to me for that area was just average. I actually anticipated seeing more deer than that there because there's a lot of deer over there.
Yeah.
But anyway, because we were talking about, do you set in the same spot over and over? Because I thought about back here just setting back in, just like no matter what, I'm hunting back there for 30 days straight because I know there's a good one back there. But I don't know. That's my story. So I benefited from the jump, the move.
That's why I like bow hunting so much. Is nothing is a given. It is a huge challenge. And, you know, just small things. I mean, if you'd had a gun, that deer's dead.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I like bow hunting so much because everything has to go right. You have to get them in close.
Yeah.
And I like that challenge.
Yeah. Will you bow hunt through the rifle season?
I will.
Yeah.
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 I will strictly bow hunt. It's not that I'm against gun hunting. I mean, I love gun hunting, but I am a bow hunter. I did draw a special tag this year for a 2-day muzzleloader hunt that I might do, but even with that tag, I can still go in there with a bow, and I probably will.
Really?
Yeah, because I mean, I just like the challenge so much.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. If I kill that buck with a bow, me personally, it just means more to me than if I kill it with a gun.
Yeah. We were raised in the same vein, Rusty. You know my history.
Yeah.
But in the last 7 years, I have hunted with a muzzleloader and with a rifle more than I ever had in my life, and I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the liberation. Like my dad is just like your dad. Like my dad doesn't even own a deer rifle. He wouldn't let us hunt with guns when we were growing up, and I loved that. I enjoy carrying a muzzleloader or something, but I'm gonna be getting back to my bow hunting roots a little bit more.
Let's say I may be giving away my age here, but I think I started shooting a bow in 1977.
No, you didn't.
Yeah.
Not 77. You're not that old.
I wouldn't have guessed it.
How old are you?
I'll be 49 in November.
Okay, so you were like
I was born
7 years old.
I was born in 71, yeah.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe, because I asked him a while back, when did I start shooting?
Yeah.
And he told me about around that age.
Okay, yeah.
Because he's a huge bow hunter.
Yeah.
Huge bow hunter. And I just, that's how I was brought up.
Yeah.
You know, so it stuck.
Well, I'm 10 years behind you because I started shooting a bow when I was in the 3rd grade. That's when Dad bought us compound bows.
Yeah.
And I would have been in the 3rd grade in like 1987.
Yeah.
But I'm 41. So
yeah.
I'm pretty old too.
I started rusting, I believe, when he was 5. Just a little stick bow, you know, and then he just kind of graduated up. I think the first animal he killed with a bow was a turkey. Yeah. I thought that was pretty good. I think he was 10 maybe, shot a turkey with a bow. I just dropped him off. I had a blind set up and come back. I said, well, did you see anything? I went to pick him up. He said, well, yeah, I killed a turkey. I'm like, what? At that point, I don't think I'd even killed a turkey with a bow. But, yeah, he shot a turkey, and he's shot deer at 10 years old with a bow.
Yeah.
He's bigger than your average kid, though. I mean, he could pull back pretty good poundage, you know.
He's bigger than your average kid right now.
Yeah, he's 6'3", about 350. But anyway,
Man, that's awesome. Kolby,
Yeah.
do you have any questions? I mean, like specific hunting questions for him or anything? You think about it. If you don't, then don't. You think about it.
I mean, I did have one thought.
Oh, okay.
Like, what if you go into an area, like, I'll just go and hunt with my dad somewhere at some point. So if you don't have time to scout or anything, if you're just going in and just going to hang something or sit somewhere, what do you look for?
If I didn't have time to scout it, I'd go strictly by the map.
Okay.
I'd go strictly by the map.
So you'd be looking for terrain features.
Yeah, just terrain features on the map. If I had zero, if I'd never been in there, never had time to scout it or anything like you said, I'd just look on the map and say, hey, we're going to hunt right here.
Yeah. That's worked for me.
Yeah.
We one time, my dad's got this habit of calling the local game warden and talking to him, getting some information.
Yeah.
And so there was this one spot we were hunting for the first time. He was like, the game warden just said, it's public land, but there's only, like, you have to walk a long way to get to the other side of this water feature.
Yeah.
If you just hop in the water feature and jump over, you probably do pretty good.
Yeah.
Get in a boat.
Yeah. It's just like getting a boat and hop over. And so we did that, and it worked. Right on the map, I saw the spot where the water feature kind of horseshoes around, and so it kind of pinches at the top, and there's like a lot of white oaks in that horseshoe area. And I just walked in there and saw a buck, and didn't get a shot at him, but I ended up getting a doe that afternoon.
Yeah,
and a hog. So
yeah. If you didn't have any time whatsoever, and it was a shotgun hunt like that or whatever, you can just go by the map, and you probably do pretty good.
Yeah.
And back to the game warden deal, that's a really good idea. I do the same thing. I know all the game wardens, and I talk to all of them all the time. Yeah, they see a lot, they know a lot, and most of them will share some information with you. I mean, they're driving these roads, all day long.
Yeah.
If they see a big buck cross the road, and they're like, hey, I seen a big buck cross back there, that'll give me a starting point.
And usually, because of the nature of their job and the time when they have to work, usually a lot of them aren't big hunters.
Right.
Well, I'm not saying they're not big hunters, but they're not hunting at normal times. So they might be willing to give you some intel.
Yeah.
Because they're not using it for themselves that weekend. Some guys.
Yeah.
I know some good game wardens, but
I know my dad starts hunting a lot heavier when he starts seeing more deer hit on the road too.
Yeah.
A lot of little factors.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about calling, Rusty? What's give me your bullet point philosophies on deer calling?
I'm a huge fan of calling. I use a grunt call. I use a little rattling bag. I never get real aggressive unless I'm in Kansas.
Okay.
Around here with a rattle bag, I'll just barely tickling them. I never get real aggressive in Arkansas. I just don't. In Kansas, I do. I mean, I just smash that thing, and they'll come running. But around here, I haven't found that to be real. I don't know.
I know the answer. I mean, like, I could tell you the answer, but it doesn't add up. Why doesn't it work here?
I really don't know the answer to
these
that.
Deer fight. These deer breed.
Yeah, we've got them fighting on camera all the time. We set all our cameras to video mode, and I like video mode a lot better. But I mean, we've got buck fights on camera, on game camera and stuff all the time, just all out.
So it's not because what the typical talking point would be well, the buck doe ratios are so bad in Arkansas or wherever that the bucks just aren't fighting as much. They're not responding to fighting sounds. Where if you had like a 1-to-1 buck ratio, and there's some of that's true, but we have decent buck to doe ratios in lots of places. Like it's not like
we do.
It's not like totally off kilter here.
No. I mean, I just haven't had much luck. Aggressive rattle bag. I mean, just light stuff, works better. I don't rattle a whole lot in Arkansas. I just haven't had the success. Kansas, different story. But here, and I've had every grunt call, that has been made just about. And there's one grunt call that I've got that works better than all the rest. I'm not going to say what it is.
Oh, really? You're not going to tell us?
Not going to say. I've got it in my truck right now. I'll show it to you in a minute.
Okay.
But
I'll be right back.
But there is. I mean, I don't know if it's just me or what, but there's this one grunt call that, I mean, I will not use any other but this one.
I'm in the market for a good grunt call.
Well, this is a good one.
I actually looked into a grunt call today. It'd be interesting to see if it was the same one you're talking about.
I bet it's not.
Probably not.
It's not a mainstream.
But this one is really obscure.
This is different than any other grunt call that you've ever seen.
I like the sound of that.
Yep.
Okay, what about when do you call deer? Like
when? Well, like yesterday, I called to that. I saw a big 140-inch 8-point. I mean, that's a monster for an Ozark Hill Country buck.
Yeah.
So I called to him with a grunt, and these bucks are not dumb. When they get that big, they are not dumb.
Yeah.
And I'm a lot of time real hesitant about calling to them when they're in sight like that. But he was headed away from me.
Okay.
And I thought, well, what have I got to lose? I'm going to try to get him to turn and come back.
Yeah.
And when I got his attention, he took a few steps toward me. And what do you think he did?
He craned his neck and looked and looked and looked.
He looked and looked and looked, and then he just started circling downwind.
Oh, okay.
And I knew as soon as he started that direction, I knew I'd messed up. I mean, it was either just let him walk out of sight or try.
So you feel
I tried.
And so he got, you didn't see him, but he got downwind of you.
What he did, here's what he did, Clay, is when I grunted at it, I just done a light grunt, got his attention. Then I done like a beer, like that.
Like you were bumping.
And he started walking to me. And these are open woods. And he stops and he's looking. Well, he doesn't see that deer. And he's not stupid. Mm-hmm. So he starts circling downwind. I believe if I'd have had a decoy, I don't hunt with a decoy hardly any in Arkansas. In Kansas, it's a whole different ballgame.
I think he would have spooked. I don't think a decoy would have worked.
I think a decoy would have worked.
Really?
He was looking for that buck. If I'd have had a buck decoy there, I believe he would have come in. I've hunted with a decoy too much.
Even in Arkansas, you think it would have worked?
I think it might. I think I'd have had a better chance, yeah.
But would you have not spooked every doe that came within sight of that decoy before the buck got there?
Nah.
Really?
Nah.
Okay.
There'll be some that'll spook. It'll spook bucks and everything. But, man, when a mature buck.
A big one?
When a mature buck gets out there, they can't stand it.
See, that's the hard part I have with decoys in it's at least Arkansas. Now, I understand how they work in the Midwest. But my experience, it's limited, but I have set over a decoy, and it spooked every single deer I've ever seen.
Yeah. It'll mess with your – as much as I've spent a lot of time in Kansas, and when I'm hunting here in Arkansas like this year, I did not draw a Kansas tag. So I'm going to hunt Arkansas. If I tag out in Arkansas, I'll go buy me a Missouri license. It's over the counter. Yeah. But it messes with your mind a little bit because I've had so much success in Kansas. And then when you're grunting at a deer like a deer I saw yesterday, and you're thinking in your mind, man, if I just had a buck decoy, would he come in or would he not? Would he spook? Would he come in? I don't know. In Kansas, it's a no-brainer. Yeah. I would have that decoy out there. But in Arkansas, it's messing with your mind a little bit, Yeah. Because I've not had success in Arkansas with a decoy. I've tried them, and I just don't. I've just stopped using them in Arkansas.
Okay, let me tell you my thoughts on calling, or at least a simplistic section of thought on calling. I pretty much grunt at every deer that I see that is not coming within bow range. I mean, again, this is one little if I'm sitting there, my instinct, if I see a deer that is skirting me, that is not going to come within bow range, I'm going to bite. I'm going to hit him, and most of the time, it's gonna. And what I find strange enough, before the rut, most does will come to a grunt call. Yeah. If you grunt, if you see a doe out there at 60 yards that's not coming by you, and I may not even be wanting to shoot a doe, but I'm wanting to draw all these deer as close to me as possible just in case there's other deer with them or deer, And so I've just had a ton of success, especially pre-rut, before October the 20th when they're just on kind of feeding pattern. Yeah. Does responding to grunt calls. I've grunted plenty of big buck, some of these deer right here were grunted in. but it doesn't always work. Yesterday, now I tried to salvage the spooked deer yesterday. Once I knew they were for sure leaving, I grunted at that big buck, and it didn't work. He craned his neck and looked, but they ended up moving off. An hour later, I saw a younger buck that I was pretty certain I wasn't going to shoot, but I just saw a racked, kind of probably 2-year-old type deer skirting 60, 70 yards away, not going to be within bow range. Perfect candidate to grunt in. I grunted at that deer, and he stopped and looked at me and then just kept going. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah, he didn't want he didn't care a bit about it.
A lot of times, a 2-year-old boy, they'll just come running. They'll run right to the base of your tree, and they're looking around.
Boy, kind of surprised me.
Yeah. Immature bucks, man, I tell you got to be really careful. They're super, super smart.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Talking about rattling, I was about to say, and if I had time to think about it, I think in Arkansas I've rattled up 2 bucks, like mature bucks, like straight up rattled them up. But I couldn't have killed either one of them with a bow. I tried.
Yeah.
I mean, because they come in on full alert and
Yeah.
stop out there at 30 or 40 yards
Yeah.
facing you because you're the point source of this sound.
Right.
And they stand there for 10 seconds and don't see another deer, and they turn around and leave.
Yep.
So it's not effective.
Right.
If we were in big open country, and maybe could have had a decoy, and that's a place where a decoy would have worked.
Yeah.
But I wasn't trying to kill a deer. I was trying to, every time I rattled in deer, I had a set of rattling horns, and both times it was with actual horns. It was like the hunt was kind of dead, and so I was like, I'm just going to clack these horns together.
Yeah.
And no telling how many times I've done that, and it didn't work. Twice in 30 years of bow hunting, it worked.
Yeah.
But neither time did I kill the deer because I didn't have a decoy out. And I wouldn't have had a decoy out because it's just I was hunting a travel area. Like I was expecting to kill a buck just walking through.
Yeah.
I didn't need a decoy. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's kind of like mishmash strategies.
Some of these big bucks, even in the Midwest, the biggest buck I ever killed, I was hunting with a decoy. And 2 days in a row, he stopped 80 yards from the decoy and just would not come in.
So he saw the decoy.
Oh, yeah. He saw the decoy and everything. And, I got to thinking, every time I had a sighting of this deer, he was always by himself. He's not got any broke nothing, or he's always by himself. He's like a loner, a real passive type deer. So 2 days in a row, he stopped at 80 yards from my decoy and just would not come in at all. He'd just skirt around and leave like he was scared of it or something. So after 2 days of that, I took that decoy and I throwed that thing in the woods and I killed that buck the next day.
Oh,
yeah. Killed him the next day.
Now, did he want to come that way and the decoy was bumping him away?
Yeah.
So he just walked by you?
Yeah. I didn't even have to call him in or nothing. It was I was in a travel corridor.
Yeah.
I was hunting a field edge.
Yeah.
And there's a trail coming across this field.
Yeah.
And man, I passed up, I think 9 or 10 Pope and Young class deer or bigger because I was hunting this deer. He ended up scoring 186 in the 8th.
Wow.
So, I had passed up several really nice bucks. I was videoing them, everything. They were interacting with the decoy and everything. But this buck here, the one I was after, he just would not come in. He was real passive. And I took that decoy, I throwed that thing in the woods, and I killed him the very next day.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
So this whole podcast is about how don't use a decoy.
Yeah.
Don't rattle. Don't do all this. No, that's good intel, man.
I've called a lot of deer in by grunting or using a bleat call too.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
What do you tell me don't tell me what you think people want to hear. Tell me the truth, Rusty. About scent control. Okay, because listen, here's my philosophy. Like when scent control products first started coming out, the good hunters that were already doing a whole bunch of stuff right, that were taking whitetail hunting really serious
Yeah.
started using the stuff because
Yeah.
they wanted to become the best that they could be.
Mm-hmm.
So the guys that were using scent control all of a sudden were the guys that had a ton of success. In the correlation point, oftentimes there's correlation between things, between data points that seem like they're connected. Like whitetail hunting success equals using all the commercial scent control products success. And so you make this connection.
Mm-hmm.
But really, the correlation isn't that. The correlation was that these guys were doing a whole bunch of other stuff right. Now, I'm not anti-scent control. At different times, I have been. I made a Facebook post a couple years ago.
I commented on it.
Well, and I'm not totally convinced because the last 8-9 years, I have used basically zero scent control.
Let me ask you this. You believe science, right?
I do.
I've heard you say it on a podcast.
I love science.
Okay. I heard you say it on a podcast one time. I love science. You know what this is, don't you? It's chemical science.
Okay.
I mean,
so it works.
I believe it helps. I'm not going to say, go out and buy all this stuff and you're guaranteed that a deer's not going to smell you.
Okay.
And it goes back to the argument about wind. I mean, I have a lot of, I guess, off the wall or whatever opinions, but like the spot I hunted yesterday, I'm not even worried about the wind. I didn't even pick the tree that I was in based on wind direction or anything. I picked the tree that I hunted out of where I thought I would get a shot at a deer. The wind, I mean, if I've got a perfect northwest wind or whatever, and there's a perfect tree here, and I think all the 90% of the travel is going to be in this one direction, yeah, I can use the wind in my advantage. But most of the time, I don't even worry about the wind. But it's not because of these products.
Well, okay, so what do you do, though, Rusty?
Well, I do. I try to stay as clean as I can.
What does that mean?
By washing.
So you're talking about like scent-free soap,
showers,
literally taking scent-free showers.
Yeah.
Okay, I can buy that,
but not necessarily a hunting industry scent-free soap.
Okay.
And I do not use a hunting industry deodorant. I'm not going to say what deodorant I use, or antiperspirant, whatever you want to call it.
Secrets.
I do have a few secrets, yeah. But I do use some stuff.
Okay.
But there is one thing that I do use a lot of, and I learned this in the 80s from my dad. I always told him, you should have, back in the early 80s, you should have started, you'd be a millionaire now if you'd have invented some of this scent control stuff. But he started using baking soda.
Okay.
And I do use a lot of baking soda.
Yeah, in your clothes. My dad.
In my clothes.
I've done the same thing a lot.
I even put it on myself.
Okay.
So that is one thing that I use. And baking soda, you just go to the grocery store and buy it.
Because it absorbs scent.
It absorbs scent.
Yeah. What about your clothes? Okay, if we were to go hunting together this afternoon, would you hunt in these clothes you're wearing? Rusty's wearing camo right now. He just came out of the woods.
Yeah, I've done some scouting today, and I just happened to. These are some pants that a company sent us to try out.
But would you go sit in a stand right now wearing those?
No.
So do you have scent controlled boxes in your truck with all your clothes in it? Okay. That's what I want to get at.
Yeah. I keep my clothes clean, and I wash them, and I use a lot of baking soda to wash my clothes.
Okay.
And I do use some commercial scent-free wash for clothes.
Yeah.
And as soon as I get them out, if I can, I like to air dry them outside if I can in the right place.
Okay.
And then I've got either bags or containers that.
If a deer had come downwind of you yesterday, would it have smelled you?
May or may not. I had a few deer come downwind that did not smell me.
Okay.
And it gets a little deeper than just scent controlling yourself. Like I mean, the wind direction, what drifts, all that kind of, there's a lot that goes into it.
Here's my thoughts on it.
The thermals.
Like the way I don't get winded very often in the morning when thermals are rising because of heating, raising air temperature.
The heat will raise it.
It's, a lot of the hunting that I'm doing, especially not around here, is mountain hunting where I'm walking back into places or riding a mule in warm temperatures.
Mm-hmm.
And scent control is just a joke. If you hunted with me back in there, you might as well smell like a toilet. I mean, like it doesn't matter.
Yep.
That is really what I was poking holes at.
Yep.
Like, don't tell me you got to use scent control to kill deer back in there or bear. I mean, a lot of my bear hunting is that way. I mean, I am covered in sweat multiple times per day. Can't take a scent-free shower. My clothes. So, but now that I'm kind of coming back. So basically, when my dad instilled in us so deep about, I mean, it just made hunting so hard to be scent-free. Keep washing clothes, only wearing clothes one time, keeping them scent-free boxes. Like, I was in that for so long at the peak of whitetail scent control stuff when it first came out in the late 90s through the 2000s. That when I started kind of getting out on my own, I was like, man, all you got to do is hunt the wind, and you don't have to worry about all that stuff. That's really the way I've operated for the last 15 years.
Yeah.
And it's not – I don't feel like it's costed me a ton of deer. Because I've killed a lot of good deer hunting that way.
Yeah.
But I'm starting to go back the other direction, especially on this hunting that's you can control things.
Yeah.
And for me, I live in two different worlds. I live in this like public land, backcountry world that I love. But I also live in this world where I'm hunting like farms that I'm driving my truck up to and walking 200 yards to a deer stand.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like in that controlled environment, I'm beginning to come back to I might as well do scent control. What do you think? Tell me.
Okay, I've always looked at it. Why not do it? I mean, just say that it just helps just a smidge. To me, it's worth doing all that.
Well, let me play the devil's advocate. I want you to convince me of something different. So I'm not trying to like squelch your idea.
Yeah.
But I've done everything to a T and still had deer smell.
Oh yeah, you cannot 100%. I truly believe you cannot 100%.
If in like all the energy and effort that I put into whitetail deer hunting, if 30% of that effort is going towards scent control, that doesn't work a lot of the time. I'm just like, I'm cutting that 30% off.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand.
And so that's basically what I've done for 10 years or longer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I'm coming back to a place where it's like, well, like in yesterday's a great example. Like if I had, because I did nothing for scent control yesterday other than walk through a cow pie on the way up there to cover my ground scent because I was hunting a cattle farm, which is stellar ground scent control.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just a deer don't smell me where I walk on that farm. I walk through a cow pie every time. I had the thought yesterday, if I had done everything to a T, because I didn't sweat going in there. It was cold.
Mm-hmm.
I was close to my truck. I didn't have to, I wasn't covered in sweat. Would that doe have walked through my scent?
Mm-hmm.
Would she have just kind of spooked just a little bit and walked through and then the buck come through?
Yeah.
And I think the answer to that question is maybe she would have. But I'm not, and I could have done everything and spent all that energy and time, and then got the exact same results.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with everything you're saying. I do a lot of scent control and do everything that I can.
Do you use spray?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
it's proven that stuff kills a bacteria. I mean, it's proven that it kills bacteria. Will it kill all of it? Probably not. Will it kill all the scent on your clothes? Probably not. What if it killed just 20% of it, and that just a little bit was just enough to get a deer 5 yards closer for a shot?
Yeah.
What's your view on carbon clothes?
Man, I don't have a lot of recent intel. I've not paid any attention to it in a long time.
So, I was really skeptical of it, and I had a friend of mine at work say, we were talking about stuff like that. He said, man, when I was over in Iraq, he said, we wore carbon suits. He's like, they were just real thick carbon suits. And he said, we would wear them things for like 2 weeks without taking a bath. And he said, nobody stunk. But he said, when you took that thing off, he said it was just about make you puke. I mean, the odor was so bad when they took the suit off.
So it contained
it was
the
containing all that scent. I'm thinking, man, I mean, there must really be
science.
something to it. That's the science. Yeah. So, and I got to thinking, if you went the carbon route, I feel like you would need the pants, the shirt, the head cover. I mean, you'd have to really cover everything up. But even if you covered, say, 50% of your body with it, and it's absorbing 50% of your scent, that might help just enough.
Yeah, and I think that's a great argument. And that's why I wanted to talk to you about this, because I'm wanting someone to – I'm not happy with my scent control regimen for when I'm in a controlled hunt. Mm-hmm. A lot of my hunting is uncontrolled. I'm backcountry stuff. You just and warm weather stuff too, boy. I mean, if you do all that scent control and you break a sweat on the way in there, all that is like
You wear merino wool, don't you?
Yeah,
that's a natural odor inhibitor, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So I mean,
it's good.
I do wear some too.
Yeah.
I don't like the way it stays wet like if you get it wet, it takes forever to dry it out. But I mean, I do wear, especially undergarments.
You must not be wearing First Light.
No, I don't. I don't.
That wool is actually known for drying out quick. But
the merino.
Oh, really?
That's what it's known for.
The merino?
Absolutely. Drying out quicker than cotton. Way quicker.
Mm-hmm. I know, but I mean, it'll dry out faster than cotton, but it won't some synthetic material dries out
the synthetic,
really fast.
Yeah, I'm with you.
See,
I'm with you.
I've been wearing the synthetic material
on skin
undergarments,
yes.
and I mean, they dry out just like that.
I see.
And then I put my merino wool on it. It seems like it takes forever to dry out. Now, compared to cotton, I agree with you.
Yes. Well, Rusty, me and you both need to. Well, you're still kind of drying out from a long couple of days of hunting.
Yeah,
I'm going to try to go hunt this afternoon. Last couple hours, no, man. So you guys on Instagram are Whitetail Warfare?
Yeah, Whitetail Warfare.
So you can follow Rusty and his son Rustin. And
our marketing manager is Dalton Klinkskills.
Yeah, Dalton.
Yeah, it's us three, and we have a very successful page. We're mainly Instagram. We are on Facebook too, but our main deal is Instagram right now. And we're working with some great partners, and it's going really good.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, you guys post a lot of video footage and stuff, and trail camera footage.
Yeah, our main deal is trail camera stuff. Yeah. I mean, we really have a lot of trail camera content, and it's pretty cool stuff, and the viewers really like it. So
cool.
Everything whitetail.
Everything whitetail.
Yep.
Well, man, I'm really glad I caught you. Just barely caught you in a moment when you come by, and so anyway, awesome to have you on. And no, like I said, I have a ton of respect for you, Rusty. I've always said it that for you as a hunter, as a man, I've learned a lot from you.
Yeah.
You really every year you inspire me, man. Because I'll text Rusty at like noon.
Yeah.
And he'll be like, I'm in a tree.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, doggone it, I got to get in a tree.
Yeah, I'm pretty hardcore. I mean, I live for this stuff. We do it
year
round.
You take off a lot of time this time of year.
I do. Yeah, I still have a full-time job. Dalton has a full-time job, and Rustin is in his second year of law school right now. So,
so you take off like what's your schedule right now?
Yeah, I've basically right now I've got 30 days in a row off.
Okay.
And so, I mean, I will be logging the hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm pretty picky. I mean, if I shoot one, it's going to be it'll be Pope and Young size or bigger.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But 30 days of vacation right now. Just started
hunting.
Yeah.
All right, man.
Yeah.
Well, good luck to you, and appreciate it, man.
Yeah. I thank you for inviting me here and discussing some stuff. It's awesome. Yeah.
Keep the wild places wild, because that's where the big bucks live.
I try.